love, learning's a home. You get the education for all. Gyanwani, Gyanwani, education at your doorstep. Sonia Gyanwani.
I am Professor Vibhuti Patel, Head of the Department of Economics in Mumbai from SNDT Women's University. Now, in Unit 1, one of the important concepts in gender economics is empowerment. Now, definition of empowerment is very important to understand because it is related to gender equality but distinct from it. Empowerment is a process that marks change over a period of time and requires that the individual being empowered is involved as a significant agent in the change process. Several experts agree that an empowered woman is one who has agency to formulate strategic goods and strategic choices and to control resources and decisions that affect important life outcomes. The core of the concept of empowerment lies in the ability of the woman to control her own destiny. For example, only empowered women can oppose pressure to undergo sex-selective abortions of female fetus. This implies that to be empowered, women must not only have equal capabilities such as education and health and access to resources and opportunities such as land and employment, they must also have the agency to use those rights, capabilities, resources and opportunities to make strategic choices and decisions such as is provided through leadership opportunities and participation in political institutions. Another very important concept in gender economics is mainstreaming, gender mainstreaming. Now, mainstreaming of gender into development policies, gender planning techniques, gender-sensitive governance, gender audit of budgets, they are very, very important to understand. The concept of gender mainstreaming has gained tremendous popularity among the development economists, social scientists, policy makers, practitioners in the new millennium. It is perceived as crucial from the point of view of equity and efficiency. Increasingly, the scholars and decision makers in the government as well as non-government organizations are accepting that gender bias is not only harmful and costly for women, but it's also equally harmful to children and the households. If women were given equal opportunities, equal treatment and equal remuneration, equal share in property, it would be possible for the country to have more output, more development of capacities, more well-being and more leisure due to combined contribution of men and women. When we do gender mainstreaming, we do not see women as beneficiaries of the crumbs thrown at them by the system, but we perceive women as active participants in the development process and citizens. For healthy governance, and I quote Dr. Sen, Amartya Kumar Sen, we need a vision of mankind not as the patients whose interests have to be looked after, but as agents who can do effective things both individually and jointly. We also have to go beyond the role of human beings specifically as quote-unquote consumers or as people with need and consider more broadly their general role as agents of change who can, given the opportunity, think, assess, evaluate, evolve, inspire, agitate, and through this means reshape the world. Quote complete. Prerequisite for gender mainstreaming is gender audit. Gender audits as an input to engender governance must be made an integral part of all development efforts by the state and the civil society initiatives. In this section, the effort is made to give an overview of policies and programs that have deconstructed and reconstructed gender relations in our country in the post-independence period. Now, concept of practical gender needs and strategic gender needs some clarification at this stage. Practical gender needs are those that women identify in their socially accepted roles in society. Practical gender needs do not challenge the gender division of labor or women's subordinate position in society, although rising out of them. Practical gender needs are a response to immediate perceived necessity identified within specific context. Strategic gender needs are the needs women identify because of their subordinate position to men in their society. They relate to gender division of labor, power and control and may include such issues as legal rights, domestic violence, equal wages, women's control over their bodies. Meeting strategic gender needs helps women to achieve greater equality. The distinction between these two types of needs can provide a useful tool to aid us in analyzing how gender is being addressed in process. The distinction between practical gender needs and strategic gender needs can provide a useful tool to aid us in analyzing how gender is being addressed in proposed policy or project intervention. We also need to understand gender equality and equity from the point of view of gender economics. I would begin with quotation from United Nations in 2002, and it goes like this: equality is the cornerstone of every democratic society that aspires to social justice and human rights. The term gender equality has been defined in multiple ways in development literature and has been the subject of great debate in the UN. It often means women having the same opportunities in life as men. For instance, equality of access to education and employment, which doesn't necessarily lead to equality of outcomes. Several experts have proposed conceptual frameworks for understanding gender equality. The United Nations Human Development Report refers to gender equality in terms of capabilities such as education, health and nutrition, and opportunities, economic and decision making. Gender equality in terms of equality under the law, equality of opportunity including equality of rewards for work, and equality in access to human capital and other productive resources that enable opportunity, and equality of voice, the ability to influence and contribute to the development process. Three primary domains of equality between men and women emerge from both these frameworks. Number one, capabilities, access to resources and opportunities. And number two, agency or the ability to influence. And number three, contribute to the outcome. Capabilities domain refers to basic human abilities as measured through education, health and nutrition. It is the most fundamental of all three domains and is necessary for achieving equality in other two domains. Access to resources and opportunities, the second domain, refers primarily to equality in the opportunity to use or apply basic capabilities through access to economic assets such as land and property and resources such as income and employment. The third domain, which is talking about the women's agency, is the defining element of the concept of empowerment and refers to the ability to make choices and decisions that can alter our outcomes. Gender equality in this domain can only result from an equalizing in the balance of power between women and men in the household and societal institutions. These three domains of equality are interrelated. Progress is in any one domain to the exclusion of the others is insufficient to meet the goal of gender equality. While they are interrelated, the three domains are not necessarily dependent on each other. So, for instance, illiterate women may organize, thereby building their agency to influence outcomes for themselves and their households. Not surprisingly, women then use that agency to demand capabilities, better health and education, opportunity, access to decent work. Similarly, women with capabilities as measured by education may have no economic opportunity, as is evidenced in many Middle Eastern countries. Now, gender inequalities exist because of discrimination in the family and societal institutions, social, cultural and religious norms that perpetuate stereotypes, practices and beliefs that are detrimental to women. Amartya Sen narrates 7 forms of gender inequalities of, say, mortality, natality, basic facility, special opportunity, profession, ownership and household. Human rights conventions provide redress for discrimination, and among this, the Convention to Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, popularly known as CEDAW, adopted by the UN General Assembly in 1979, is the most universally accepted instrument for realizing gender equality and influencing cultural and traditional definitions of gender roles and family relations. The treaty has been ratified by 170 countries, including every nation in the Western Hemisphere except the United States. But its impact is dependent on political will and resources. Economic institutions and policy can exacerbate existing gender inequalities instead of mitigating them. There is Convention to Eliminate All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, adopted by the UN, a strong tendency to see the market as liberating force. While modern markets can and do undermine some of the pre-existing forms of culturally determined gender inequality, they also incorporate and transform pre-existing inequalities into new ones. I think we can have many examples, such as proliferation of informal sector, where you use all patriarchal theories or patriarchal behavior of segmentation of labor market to keep women at the lowest rung of the pyramid. Commercialized new reproductive technologies are posing major threats to women's survival chances in India and China by encouraging existing patriarchal biases of son preference and sex-selective abortions of female fetuses and abuse of scientific technology for femicide. I think that is a classic example of how commercialization and patriarchy, they go hand in hand. Laws and policies play a significant role in determining the extent of gender inequality that exists in a society. They can serve to protect women's rights or to reduce them. For example, in many countries, women still lack the legal right to inherit or own property, and in many others, violence against women is not considered a criminal offense. Without transformation in economic relations or the implementation and enforcement of legal rights and protection, gender equality and empowerment of women can remain an elusive goal. So, for gender equality, what we need is equity. We have to create an ambience, an environment, an ecosystem that is conducive to reach the goal of equality, and that can be done by initiative from top, by better legal system, by legal reforms, gender justice, and pressure from women and pressure from below for gender equality. Very important concern in today's context is that of gender budgeting and how it is linked to women's development. Budget is an important tool in the hands of the state for affirmative action for improvement of gender relations through reduction of gender gap in development process. It can help to reduce economic inequalities between men and women as well as between the rich and the poor. Hence, the budgetary policies need to keep into considerations the gender dynamics operating in the economy and in the civil society. There is a need to highlight participatory approaches to the economy and in the civil society. There are experiments made about bottom-up budget where the people concerned, they are making budget, they are involved in the budget making process. We have a child budget focusing on the needs and aspirations of children, green budget which is environmentally sensitive budgeting, global and local implications of pro-poor and pro-women budgeting and how it is linked to women's empowerment, more space for women, more opportunities for women, and also the interlinkages between gender-sensitive budgeting and women's development have been very important concerns in gender economics. Understanding the relationship between macroeconomic policies and the union budgets, state budgets and local self-government institutions' budgets in the context of economic reforms and globalization is a must, as it has influenced women's lives in several ways, and we need to use this understanding for making effective targeting of government expenditure to women-specific activities and reduce inequalities which are responsible for gap between men and women in terms of opportunities and endowment. Gender Budget Initiative is a policy framework, methodology and set of tools to assist governments to integrate a gender perspective into the budget as the main national plan of public expenditure. It also aims to facilitate attention to gender analysis in review of macroeconomic performance, ministerial budget preparations, parliamentary debate, mainstream media coverage. Budget impacts women's lives in several ways. It directly promotes women's development through allocation of budgetary funds for women's programs and also reduces opportunities of empowerment of women through budgetary cuts. So gender budgeting is a very, very important concern for deciding women's future, investing in women or taking away opportunities from women by budgetary reduction. Gender budgeting is gaining increasing acceptance as a tool of engendering macroeconomic policies and macroeconomic policy making. The Fourth World Conference of Women held in Beijing in September 1995, the platform for action that is adopted called for gender perspective in all macroeconomic policies and their budgetary dimensions. The outcome document of the United General Assembly Special Session on Women in June 2000 also called upon all nations to mainstream gender perspective into the key macroeconomic and social development policies and national development programs. Emphasis on gender budgeting was also placed by the 6th Conference of Commonwealth Ministers of Women's Affairs held in New Delhi in April 2000. In India, till 2004, the process of gender budgeting was post-facto effort to dissect and analyze and thus offset any undesirable gender-specific consequences of previous budgets. But 2005 onwards, the scenario has changed. Due to consistent lobbying by gender economists and women's groups, for the first time in 2005, the Ministry of Finance gave a mandate to all ministries to establish a gender budgeting cell in January 2005. At present, we have 54 ministries and departments of Government of India have formed gender budget cells, have provided annual reports and performance budgets highlighting budgetary allocation for women. The first gender budgeting statement had nearly of the union government had 10 demands for grant. Currently, if we see that all these 54 ministries and departments have covered 34 demands for grants under these ministries in the union budget and in the 5 union territories. We have seen that from 9th 5-year plan, the consciousness about making budgets gender sensitive has come because 9th 5-year plan was the first time it talked about women component plan where it was demanded that 30% of all anti-poverty program mega flagship scheme should be targeted to women's concerns. The 10th 5-year plan suggested specific strategies, policies and programs for empowerment of women. The budgetary allocation had increased to say 13,780 crores. The plan accepted women component plan and gender budget to play a complementary role for effective convergence, proper utilization and monitoring of funds from various departments of the union government and the state governments. The Ministry of Women and Child Development was also established in 2006, that means during 10th 5-year plan period. The 11th 5-year plan, which was aimed at inclusive growth, also demanded mainstreaming and gender equity, which required adequate provision to be made in policies and schemes across ministries and departments for women's development. It also entails strict adherence to gender budgeting across the board. It promised special focused efforts for creation for an enabling environment for women to become economically, politically and socially empowered. The 12th 5-year plan, that means current 5-year plan, has also focused on women component plan and budgetary strategies, and it has given in great detail for the kind of schemes and programs that should be targeted 100% to women. In all anti-poverty programs, 1/3 allocation should go to women, and even gender-neutral schemes should make a special effort for including women in the budgetary process. Now, women's status and women's bargaining power in the economy have a major bearing in budgetary allocations. Gender budgeting consists of empirical exercises that focus on public policies and aim to bring out their gender-specific implications. Yearly analysis of budget from the point of view of women is a must to enhance women's economic interests and socio-political standing in the economy. Analysis of budget from gender perspective makes us understand what are the nature, character and content of women's share in the development cake. Women's groups and gender economists, they started dissecting union budgets from 2001. Now they are also involved in the pre-budget dialogues, pre-budget making processes. So we see there are so many schemes with pro-women allocation, and now it is not only a concern for outlay, how much allocation is made, but what has been the outcome, because unutilized fund is a major problem faced in the budget allocated for women. If women's groups don't know about it, if the women in elected representatives in the local bodies or women politicians, if they are not aware of demanding schemes and programs for women, the amount allocated for women would remain unused. There are so many untouched areas about women's survival struggle or women's problems where budgetary intervention could make major breakthrough in the women's survival struggle and women's predicament. And the discourse on gender budgeting in India during last decade has revolved around more budgetary allocation to combat declining child sex ratio, implementation of preconception and prenatal diagnostic techniques act 2002, on reduction of maternal mortality and child mortality, improvement of women reproductive and child health, giving more quality services in integrated child development scheme, and under the category of 100% allocation for women, the institutional support for women survivor of violence, like for the first time in 2013-14 budget, Nirbhaya Fund has been instituted of nearly 1,000 crore to deal with the issue of violence against women. Budgetary allocation for water supply and sanitation, which is a very important concern, because commercialization of water has created lot of misery and hardship for women, common women, poor women, who find it very difficult to get potable drinking water. Energy expenditure of women, collection of fuel and fodder, livestock raising, kitchen gardening takes away a lot of energy for women. So how to reduce women's drudgery through budgetary allocation and through better allocation for scientific innovations for drudgery reduction is a very important concern. Social security for women in informal sector is very important. Now India has a law which provides social security and social protection to unorganized sector workers, and this law came into place in 2008 after Arjun Sen Gupta committee report was submitted to the Prime Minister's office, and there is a non-implementation of this law because of the inadequate budgetary allocation. Right to education for women in Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Prarambhik Shiksha Abhiyan and higher education also requires massive budgetary allocation. Utilization of financial allocation for pro-women scheme, in that also, like whether it is a scheme for, say, working women's hostel, or Swadhar scheme for provides shelter to women in difficult circumstances, short stay home for women's survival of violence, or Ujjwala, a comprehensive scheme for prevention of trafficking and rescue, rehabilitation and reintegration of victims of trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. Implementation of crash scheme, all these are far from satisfactory. They need constant monitoring and lobbying. Now, 3 meals per child per day at the crash recommended by the 11th 5-year plan, that has not been still implemented. Except for Tamil Nadu, cradle baby scheme at the reception center for all the abandoned children is not replicated throughout the country, and no status report is available about the performance of ICPS, Integrated Child Protection Scheme, been made available in spite of repeated requests by the Planning Commission as well as women's organization. When it comes to fund flow to Panchayati Raj institutions, local self-government bodies, there is no streamlining even after separate budgetary allocation for PRIs made in union budget through Ministry of Panchayati Raj. How many states have provided women's development component in their funds earmarked for local self-government bodies at village, block and district levels? This question remains unanswered by most of the state governments. The fund is utilized judiciously or fulfilling practical and strategic gender needs of women? This question also has not been answered. Now, the safe transport is a major demand of women, where work participation of women in the economy has been increasing by leaps and bounds, whether it is in service sector or in the informal sector or public sector, private sector, everywhere women's participation is increasing. Women and girls are traveling long distance to go to schools and colleges. In this context, safe road and rail transport, which is also subsidized, can go a long way for empowerment of women, and for that too budgetary allocation is required. For implementation of legislations like Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act 2002, or recently the Anti-Rape Law, amendment in the Anti-Rape Law, or the Child Protection Law 2012, Indian Evidence Act 2013. For all this, major budgetary allocation is required, and not only the outlay, the budget has allocated the amount, whether it is channelized through proper ministry and reach the targeted population is also very important. After consistent highlighting of findings of Rajendra Sachar Committee report published in 2007 on deplorable socio-economic status of majority of Muslims in India, special budgetary allocation for socially excluded minority communities is made. In the subplan for minorities, where allocation of 513 crores was made in the budgetary estimates last year, no specific allocation is made for minority women and women-headed households. Now there is a lot of lobbying going on by minority women's organizations for this kind of special allocation. Government has come up with a scheme for improvement of educational standards among women in minority communities and also for inculcating leadership qualities among minority women. Inadequate allocation for crucial schemes which are affecting survival struggle of women, such as Rajiv Gandhi National Crash Scheme for children of working mothers, was very much criticized, and we have seen that in due course we see the allocation has been increasing. Even the allocation for victims of trafficking, conditional cash transfer for girl child has also now increased. There are certain studies which are showing that to highlight the gap between the plan outlay and plan outcome, local and global implications of pro-poor and pro-women budgeting, alternative macro scenario that is emerging from alternative budgets, they should be the priority concern in gender economics, and more research evaluation report should come out. For making the budget targeting in gender budgeting more effective, we need a very strong, accurate data system, and that's why visibility of women in statistics and indicators must be ensured by better data gathering and data analysis, and gender disaggregated data needs to be provided. Gender economists have strongly recommended tax reduction for working, self-employed and business women. Lowering tax rates for women will put more money in their hands and encourage those not yet in the job market to join the workforce. Similarly, property tax rules should be amended further to encourage ownership of assets among women. When women are economically independent and secure, they can exercise choice, enabling them to get out of repressive conditions. Moreover, they would contribute more to our growing economy, making it a win-win situation for a woman, for her household, for community, and for economy at large. Ministry of Women and Child Development needs more vociferous and visionary leadership, political will and courage of conviction to strive not to fulfill the promises made by 12th Five-Year Plan, but also expand the democratic space for women and girls in socio-cultural, economic, educational and political spheres. Now, gender analysis of state budgets has started. Around 8 to 9 states in our country have started providing gender budgeting. Government of Maharashtra started providing gender budgeting from 2011-12 year. Mumbai Municipal Corporation started providing separate listing and separate gender budgeting from 2009 onwards. These budgets are put on the website so that citizens can go through it and also reflect. The main issue that we need to address is that if fund is parked in the ministry, whether it reaches the targeted section of women through schemes and programs. So it is very important to see that the channelization takes place properly. Panchayati Raj institutions, they are starved of funds. They have to go with the begging bowl to state government, and in so many cases, political decisions, they become more dominant than the actual needs of the population, and that's why there is a demand that local self-government bodies should be given more financial autonomy. Only political decentralization is not enough. What we need is a financial decentralization, and and they should have a right over their money, how to use it for area development in their in their jurisdiction. And capacity building of elected representatives, administration is very important to see to it that budgetary allocation is utilized. The popularity of budget will catch people's attention only if we communicate to the people through community radio, through electronic media, through public interest advertisements, that this is the kind of budgetary allocation made under, say, 15-point program of Prime Minister's Office for upliftment of women from minority communities, or these are the plans for tribal sub-plan, and under that what all, because the major criticism of TSP is that money remains unutilized. SCP, the record is better. The scheduled caste plan is, but that component plan has been implemented because Dalit leadership is quite alert about what is the amount made. Now we have a tool of right to information. Most of the areas where judicious spending of financial allocation is made are the areas where people are conscious that how the money is collected, revenue is generated through taxation, variety of direct and indirect taxations, through tolls, through TROI, and how it is spent, for which type of scheme it is being spent, where there is a conspicuous or wasteful consumption, and where it is a developmental expenditure. So, Gender Budget Initiative has opened new vistas for research and analysis of public expenditure in the country and opened serious methodological debates for carrying out such analysis. This has also highlighted the urgency of sharpening methodological tools for monitoring the progress of Women Component Plan, which was introduced in 9th 5-year plan and continued till the 12th 5-year plan. Efforts at ensuring gender just and gender sensitive budgets demands continuous process of dissecting the government budget to establish its gender differential impact on men and women, rich and poor, child and adult, different groups and communities of the country. Translation of gender commitments into budgetary commitments is very, very important, because otherwise all these promises made for women empowerment will remain mere platitude. So now give up your fear for economics jargons or public economics jargons and the numbers and percentages, and start taking active interest in gender sensitive and gender responsive budgeting wherever you are, in your panchayat, in your municipality, in your state and in the country. Thank you very much.